Hello, my name is Steve Jarding. I'm a professor here at the Kennedy School of Government at Harvard University, and I teach a couple courses here. I've been here for 14 years. I teach a course on campaign management, political campaign management, and I teach a course essentially on communications training, how to win an interview, how to debate, and how to give a speech. Very difficult for most people, but it's not that hard. And today I'm going to go over some of those techniques and on how I think we can bring these skill sets to, in this case, women. The Girls for Girls program, I think, is fantastic. I think it's absolutely invaluable. I think it's overdue in the sense that I wish we'd had something like this years ago, but we have it now. And I say that because women particularly in government, but in leadership positions in business and law, they still haven't taken their rightful place. It's 51% of the world's population, and yet they haven't, either for cultural reasons or a variety of reasons, haven't been able to take their rightful place. And I think groups like this will help make that happen. And the truth is, I think when that happens, not if it happens, but when it happens, the world will be a better place as a consequence. Because women play such an important role, obviously, in the daily lives of humanity. They should be playing their rightful role in the daily workings of government, of law, of business, of education, of all the different disciplines. So I want to start with just kind of a sense for what I try to do here at the Kennedy School. My goal, I believe, as a professor, and I've been teaching not just at the Kennedy School, but teaching around the world for the better part of 40 years now. And I teach every summer in Brazil, I teach every summer in Romania, I teach with Chinese groups, I've worked with groups in India, in Bangladesh, in Indonesia, Croatia, Bosnia, Ukraine, Spain. I know I'm missing some, but you get the idea. This is the stuff that we teach is really universal. Communications is a universal language. And so the two courses I teach here, and I want to quickly review those, and then I want to go into specifically how some of this stuff can work and should work for women who want to get involved more in the public arena in whatever that discipline is. So first of all, the campaign management course that I teach is a course that basically tries to tell primarily young people, next generation, that politics isn't as hard as you think, okay? Politics has, not illegitimately, not the best reputation. A lot of that negative reputation is earned. Politics can be very difficult. And yet, I try to tell my students there's nothing more powerful than government. There's nothing, no entity ever devised by humanity that has the greater capacity to affect change, I hope in a positive way, but affect change than government. It's the largest business in every country. If you think of it, they regulate your lives, they educate you, they provide health care, they don't. They provide business regulation and opportunity, they tax and spend. Nothing compares to that. And I often tell a story to give perspective. I had a student, an American student, come to me one time, and he said, Professor, I don't know if I want to get into politics. I understand it has power, but why don't I become Bill Gates? Why don't I become the next Bill Gates and make $85 billion and give it away, like Bill and Melinda Gates are doing? And I looked at him and I said, well, okay. I said, first of all, I love what the Gates, Bill and Melinda are doing. They have pledged their $85 or $90 billion fortune, essentially to give it to the world, okay, to try to create a better world. But I looked at him and I said, there's two problems with your theory. I said, the first one is, you're never going to be Bill Gates, okay? And he wasn't happy about that, but I said, the odds just aren't great that you're going to create this next great whatever widget that changes the world. And he was a bit dejected, so I said, but let's assume I'm wrong. Let's assume you are the next Bill Gates, and you make $100 billion over your lifetime, and you want to give it away. I looked at him and I said, do you know how fast the United States government spends $100 billion? And he said, I have no idea. And I said, well, I do. If you take, with the way the U.S. budget is designed, a lot of stuff's off budget, on budget, the U.S. government actually spends $100 billion in about 3 days. So I said, you can work for 50 years and hopefully earn $100 billion like the Gates did. But if you take the reins of the U.S. government, you're spending that kind of money every 3 days to impact the lives of people. So My goal at the Kennedy School, and when I teach around the world, I teach at ISE Business School in Madrid, and I've taught at Strathmore Business School in Africa, and I've taught in Romania, I've taught in different places, Bosnia. I say we need to get next generation people into leadership positions, and my discipline is the political arena. I think that's where we can affect the most change. So the campaign management course that I teach is designed to show people how to run a state-of-the-art campaign in the United States and around the world. And as I said, I have been doing this about 40 years, the last 10 years or so primarily overseas. And it's wonderful, and it works universally. The techniques, voter contact, voter persuasion, how to message, how to set up your staff, all the different things that you need to do to run a state-of-the-art campaign, upgraded all the time, constantly, because politics is ever changing. Social media now has such a great presence, so we incorporate that. But basically the idea is demystify this process so more good people get into politics. So that's number one. The other course that I teach is a media training course. It's really a communications course, and as I said at the outset, it has to deal with how do we communicate, how do we connect as human beings. And there's a fair amount of evidence now that says, first of all, communications is a universal language. The human face, we now recognize, as of 2014, has 21 different emotions. Every human being in the face of the earth has 21 emotions in their face. It's the first really identified universal language. Well, that in and of itself doesn't necessarily mean a lot until we started testing when people communicate, when we communicate on a regular basis, how do we use emotions, how many do we use, and how do they impact what people think of us. And the more we studied it, the more we realized when human beings use more emotion, different emotions in their face, coupled with how they use their voice and their hands, we call them the three legs of the communication stool, voice, face, and hands, that people became more interested. They found the people more believable, more credible, and more likable. So we teach those techniques. How do you bring emotion into your presentation, passion into your presentation? How do you get the hands, face, and voice to work together? And so we teach those techniques. And we do it in these difficult settings. When people of the world are asked, why don't you get into public service? Why don't you maybe get into any discipline, business, law? Very often they say, because I'm afraid to communicate. Speech making's hard because it's one-way communication. And about 99% of people in the world, literally virtually all people in the world, never will do an interview. Rarely will give a speech. And instead, they talk one-on-one, small group. It's very interpersonal, very communicative. And so all of a sudden they give a speech or an interview and they don't know how to do it. Well, we now know how to do it so that you can connect with your audience. And it's exciting because it works and it's universal. I teach it all over the world. I teach it to business leaders, lawyers, politicians, prime ministers, presidents, senators, members of parliament, you name it, because we all communicate. Well, where this is important in the Girls for Girls program is, and go back to where I started, I think the world needs this next generation, the generation coming up, 15 to 25-year-old women, to say, we've got to take our rightful place. We've got to take the reins of power in whatever discipline that is. Again, I concentrate on government, but women need to do it in law, in business, in science, certainly in politics. And my goal would be to try to give women these techniques. And let me give you some examples. We know that women are treated to a different standard than men. They just are. It's not fair. Much of it's cultural. Much of it is just practice, right? This is the way it's been done forever. And as a consequence, in the U.S. Senate, for example, even though 51% of the American population is women, there's only 20 women in the Senate, so it's only 20%. Worldwide, it's about 23% of all elected officials are women. It should be 50% plus. So we know, though, that one of the reasons women aren't there is that they are treated to a different standard and very often a tougher standard. So part of the training that we do is what can we do for women candidates to bypass those biases, to jump, if you will, past those biases. And one of the things that we found, and this is vital to young women who want to get into the political arena or, again, into any discipline as a leader, it starts with don't change who you are. we know from studies that if we try to change our personality to adapt to something we think people want to see, that we come off as phony. And so when women are told, as they often are, well, women aren't as tough as men, so you got to act tough if you get into the business world or the legal world or the political world. What we're finding now with empirical research is that's not true. That you have to be confident in who you are. You have to be well versed in the topic, but confident in who you are. That confidence is kind of the new toughness. And so when we do media training for women, and we have special sections in my class at the Kennedy School for training for women, the first thing that we try to teach is stay within who you are. Show who you are, what's in your heart, your soul. Be versed on the issues, but be confident. Be who you are. Don't change who you are. We can tinker with how to maybe talk about a proposal that's in a way that maybe sounds a little tougher or whatever. But if we try to begin by saying a woman has to be different than who she is, we're doing a disservice to that woman. We know now from research, being yourself is huge. It's the most important thing you can do. So that's one thing that we do. Another thing that we do with women candidates particularly is we know that you're treated differently in your appearance. It's totally not fair. There was a great study in Australia where a newsman, and a man, on a nightly news program, wore the same coat, the same shirt, and the same tie every day for a year, and nobody noticed. Okay, that's a different standard. If a woman had done that, she couldn't get away with it because a woman is held to a different standard. So we've studied that, and we've tried to determine what does matter with a woman's appearance. Well, a lot of evidence that says nothing should arrive before you do. You want your communication skills to be, essentially, it's the top of the person's head to their belly button to their shoulders. And so I want people to concentrate on my face for facial gestures and my voice. I want my hand gestures to come between my chin and my belly button, humans gesture here. But I don't necessarily want my clothes to arrive before I do. I don't want them to be, maybe brightly colored unless the culture allows for that, and that's common. Then it's fully acceptable. But I want my communication skills, voice, hands, and face, to drive that. So for women, even though they are treated to a different standard, and yes, studies show a woman probably has to wear something different every day, certainly has to care about her hair more than a man does every day. It's not fair, but I don't have any hair, so it's not hard for me to take care of it. But for my wife, it would be. It's unfortunate, but studies say it's expected. So we know that. But if I were talking to my wife about this, I would say, but you gotta be you first. Yes, you need to change the way you dress. Nothing arrives. No, not too heavy jewelry, not too much makeup. For men or women, not too much cologne or perfume. You want your communication to arrive first. You want that to be the first thing people see, because that's where the strength is. We know that people connect. Think of this. There was a study at the University of California, Los Angeles, about 15 years ago now. And the study asked a simple question to people around the world. The study basically said, when people communicate, when people talk, what is it to the audience that connects to that communication? Is it the words? Is it the voice? Is it hand gestures, or what I'm doing with my face? The study was so stunning that it literally changed the way that we started to train communication training. Because what they found was 55% of the people in the world, think of that, I think 55%, over 1 out of 2 said they connected, right, with the body language, the hands and the face. All of this had to have an emotional umbrella. If I could say something with passion and emotion, but I let people see it in my hands and face, they believed it, and they liked me. 38% said it was my voice. Can I come up, down, accentuation of a word, repetition, right? The way that I actually use my voice connected to people. Almost 4 out of 10 people said that's what they connected to. Less than 10%, 7% of the people said it was the words. That's all. So we know that for women, as well as men, but for women, sometimes we worry about, oh, is the word right? Does I sound tough enough, good enough? It's less about the word than it is how you connect. Can you deliver it with passion and emotion? Do you believe it? which is another reason we don't want to change how women communicate. We want them to be themselves. We're starting to get a wonderful amount of evidence that suggests that if you just be who you are, show your emotion and passion for an issue, people will like you and it'll make you believable. Finally, I want to address one other thing that women face, unfortunately, around the world, and that is that they're not, the gender of being a woman is treated differently. There could be sexism. There could be people treat you different, so maybe you're, as a woman, you're not as strong, or that you're a sexual object. And we know from evidence that if you don't respond and, in effect, stand up for who you are, that it actually can hurt you. So if you ever face that, if you face sexism or somebody treats you or says something, studies show you need to respond right away and call them out. Tell them it has no place in society, whether it's in business, in law, or politics. Tell them that we're better than that. Tell them we should talk about issues. The point is, don't let anyone ever patronize you. Don't let anyone tell you you're not capable because you're a woman. You are at least as capable, and I would argue probably more capable than a man, because we know of your historical role in society. So my goal is to try to give these techniques, to try to give this sense of communication and confidence, certainly in the political arena, but in no matter any walk of life that you undertake. That you look at yourself with pride, say, I am a woman, I'm proud of it, I can be the best in whatever I choose. If you do that, and you have that sense of confidence, I think you will take your rightful place in society, in business, in law, in science, in education, and indeed in the political arena. So I love your organization. I love the program. Thank you for doing this. I hope that I live long enough to see women take their rightful place in the numbers that we need. Because if we do that, if you will stand up as a young woman in this generation and fight for your rightful place, we will definitely, I believe, without equivocation, have a much better world tomorrow. So thank you for the opportunity to address you. Thank you for letting me effectively come into your organization and give some thoughts. But know that I'm fighting for you and rooting for you. And if you indeed will step up, I don't think you'll regret it, and I know the world won't. So thank you again.